So, like a month out of college, I had an office at Disney Studios. So,
holy cow,
that's incredible.
Ask me about my morning.
Whoo! I wanted to come on and be like,
dude, I'm going to start this podcast off by, we're recording, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this off by apologizing to my wife. I may have raised my voice lately. And just because we filmed these so far in advance now of releasing, Gigi, this was the day that I broke my computer right before we went live. So I've been scrambling. So you'll notice I'm in.
Oh yeah, different setup.
Yeah, I'm in the guest room.
It's all right. All right. Well,
is it?
Sure.
So a lot to get to before Michael Nankin comes on. Let's just get that out of the way. The
is that who we're having on today?
Dude, I am so looking for. I'm actually nervous again. Michael Nankin is a television director. God, man, the stuff that this guy's done, like Heroes, Defiance, The Flash, Eureka, CSI, Van Helsing, Taken, The Purge, Lie to Me, Black Sails, Terminator, Battlestar Galactica. And do you remember when growing up, Life Goes On?
Of course.
Remember that show?
Corky?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the director of that. So this guy's been doing this since I think the late 70s. So I am so excited to talk to him. Wow. Can't believe he's willing to come on this podcast.
Well, don't
lowering his standards.
Don't tell him. Don't put it out there.
Oh, no. This is a total hoodwink. He doesn't know.
I can't wait to see this intro.
Yeah, we're going to cut this. All right. The other thing I wanted to get to, we haven't talked since, I mean, this is we talked, but we have not had a podcast since the PJ show.
Yeah.
Concert.
Yeah.
Our first defined event.
Yeah. And how did that go?
Well, if I'm being honest, and I think we should be honest on this show, as honest as we can, it was too good, and I mean that in all sincerity. Like, it was too much fun that you know how they say, like, when rock stars they can't match the high of getting off stage, so they end up doing heroin. I may have to start doing heroin, dude. The level of coolness of that weekend. So taking a step back, so we had an event here at the house. It was a backyard concert where we had about 60 people come for a barbecue night, and then we had a PJ Lochran backyard acoustic show. You and I produced it. We had help from Brandon and John and Ariella, Gigi, all helping on the day of. And then, but essentially what it was is you came in Friday night, and we had dinner with an old high school buddy, Bill. Shout out to Bill.
Friday and then Saturday. I guess it was Friday.
No, because Friday, because I drove.
Yeah.
I drove to Dallas, which is a 6-hour drive there and back. So we got to see an old high school friend, and then Saturday just kind of kicked off. That's when the stage came in. That's when lighting came in. Seats. So, well, here's what it looks like. And that was it. But going to it, so I mean, obviously he's my favorite artist, him and Dave Matthews, which Dave just got inducted in the Hall of Fame. Did you see that?
I did.
He did. So our friend Ariella, who we're going to have on the podcast at some point, she kept reminding me, be in the moment. Like, there's going to be a lot going on and stuff. You don't have to produce everything. Because we had 5 cameras going. You were doing audio. You engineered the whole thing, which was really cool. Like, I didn't even really analyze it until I watched some of the video of you walking around with your iPad doing all the stuff there. That was pretty interesting. But the whole thing is I just wanted to sit and enjoy it, and I did. It was the first time where I was like locked in. I had a son taking photographs for some of the album art and stuff. So
yeah,
it's cool.
It's very cool.
It was super exciting.
I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of nerves going into it, in the sense that I don't run live audio for a living. I haven't done that in quite a while. And then as well, I was trying to produce it remotely and trying to make sure that I was going to be ready for all the audio. I'm not well.
And
what?
Well, taking a step too, just to add to what could have been some of that nervousness was PJ was here in Austin for an event with John Alasia, who's Dave
Right.
Matthews, John Mayer's producer.
Yeah.
I mean, his list. And so he was potentially going to come that
Yeah.
night, but he ended up couldn't get in a day early. So you were going to be doing a live show with him there.
Yeah.
So if there was any screw ups, that would have been
not cool.
Not a good look.
No, I had to, I went through the whole gamut on that one about like, oh, cool, John might come. Oh, shit, John might come. and then it was back to like, hey, you know what? It's an opportunity and run with it. That's all you can do. So, yeah.
And we worked with him in LA. So at least he knew us. You know, so it would have been one of those things because there was one screw up in the concert, but no one will ever notice because we can fix it in post easily.
My screw up you're talking about.
Yeah, but it wasn't even really that of a screw up. It was not a screw up.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
cool.
I'm glad we're focusing on the thing I screwed up.
No, but I don't think you screwed it up just because he said you screwed it up.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't think it was awful.
Dude, the sound was amazing. Like, I mean, we're going to release it. I don't even know when we're releasing, so maybe it's going to be out by now. Just go listen to this. The sound is amazing for a backyard show that you did yourself. Like,
sure. It's fun. It's fun. There are parts of it. I'm of course the perfectionist. I'm disappointed in certain aspects. I think everything turned out great. I mean, I think for what we were trying to do, what we were trying to accomplish, it was a backyard concert. It was a great time. It was, PJ was a literal rock star, right? Literally and figuratively, in terms of like just being able to roll with it. I didn't know until we got on with him after to talk with him about stuff that he hasn't done that ever. Right. Like he hasn't sat down and he talked to us about the fact of like just him and his acoustic guitar to put on like a solo show with that many songs. Right. Like he's done like smaller things, but to do that many simultaneously was cool.
And I didn't really realize what that meant. And because when you have a band, you can hide a lot of stuff. Also, you can stop playing. The band can take over.
Right.
Because I was watching his hands go because he doesn't use a pick. So he's strumming with his thumb and his finger. I think it's weird how he plays.
Yeah.
You got to imagine after an hour, it was an hour and 20. I think we cut the concert down to an hour, but it was an hour 20 of just slapping the guitar.
Yeah. He picked on some stuff, but
only on Shoebox. No,
I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't watching that close. I just know he used the pick at some point.
Oh, I was. I edited it. So trying to learn how to play. And by the way, this whole thing started just because I'm trying to learn how to play his songs.
Like how can I get firsthand knowledge of how these songs are done?
Yeah.
I want to go back to real quick. Wait. I want to do a quick shout out because any success that I have associated with the audio from that show, which I was happy with. I was happy with how things sounded in the evening. So shout out to my buddy Jim Cates and my buddy Glenn Preston, who Jim spent some time with me for some of the audio work that he does. He's a fantastic musician, but he also does some audio work. And so some of the work that he had done, and he and I are very similarly minded as to how we think about things. So it was awesome. He set me up with an initial layout, and I could talk about some things and set a couple things up. And he saved me. I can't even tell you. I bet he saved me 20 hours from starting from scratch to try and figure everything out. And then he could just like walk me through. So huge shout out to Jim for being able to make that happen. And then also my buddy Glenn. So Glenn sent me over.
Yeah, we wanted Glenn to come down.
Yeah, we did.
He just couldn't make it,
no.
Right?
Yeah. But we're gonna have Glenn on. We're gonna force him to get onto the podcast. So. Right. Yeah, looking forward to that. Anyway, I just do a quick shout out. So I was happy to be able to work with stuff ahead of time before I could show up that day thank God, because it was so ungodly hot. I could not stand out there and actually work during the day for getting this stuff set up.
Shocking. It was like 100 degrees during the day. Yes. As soon as the sun went down, it went to like 75.
Yeah, it's totally
perfect
great.
Weather. It was unbelievable.
But the 2 days leading up to the event.
Yeah, doing sound check with PJ.
Yeah, it was brutal. But so anyway, we can move on.
You know what's cool too? We we had kind of our first time having like swag bags. We gave
Yeah.
like these magnets, these pick magnets that had the date, t-shirts and stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Like, it's a dream come true for you. You got your favorite artist playing in your backyard, which is your backyard, and having that set up with someone you like, that's been a dream of yours for a long time. So you actually got to utilize, the things that you've worked hard to, so it's a dream come true. It's awesome.
Okay, Michael Nankin's coming.
We haven't done this in a while. Whew.
Do your ebb and flow.
Ebb and flow. Here we go.
Hello.
Michael.
Thank you so much for coming on. We're coming in hot. It's already recording.
Wow. Okay. Better watch what I say now.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you. I didn't know how big of a fan I was until I started looking at your resume. You have done some unbelievable work.
Thank you. I guess there's no secrets anymore.
None.
Yeah,
none.
That's true. Well, it's something I don't know. I don't know how he got you to even come onto the podcast. What is this? How did this play out?
Brad, we were having coffee together, and he said, "I've got these pals who do a podcast. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Yes."
It's funny because I'm like, hey, do you want to talk and figure out what the podcast is about? And he's like, no, it's fine. Brad vouched for it. So.
Well, that's not on me, then. I can't. I'm not taking any of that.
So, Michael, I'm gonna try not to fan out on this too much, but in all honesty, some of the stuff you've done, I'm gonna start way back when Life Goes On. I can't tell you, that was a religious staple in our household. Yeah. Every week we watched it. And so I would love to know from your perspective, how did you break in to become a director like this? And then how does a gig like that come about?
First of all, you hardly seem old enough to have watched Life Goes On.
No way.
Thank you. Keep going. I'm sorry, the mic wasn't working. What was that, Michael? Can you say that again, please?
Yeah, no, I say same in our household. It is, it's one of those things that when you heard the song, the Obladi song, like come on, and with the in the intro and whatever, like it just, it was a regular show that we all enjoyed watching.
Well, wow, thank you. I'm sorry. I derailed from your question, which is how did I get started in all of this?
Yeah, let's start there.
It's a crazy story.
Ooh, perfect.
Which I did quite a bit of teaching of directors and actors, and everyone only ever has one question, which is how do you get started? And I have to preface it the way I usually do for them, which is this won't happen to you.
Yeah,
not the way I did.
And belongs to a world that no longer exists, and a series of stupidly lucky events that are one in 10 million. So I was a student filmmaker with a filmmaking partner, and my senior project at UCLA was a 40-minute musical comedy, like in the old style. Like we were 20 years old, and it was the 70s, and every other student film and the film festivals that we sat through were dark and angry and filled with teen angst and depressing. And
it's a typical student film.
Yeah. That hasn't changed, by the way.
Yeah, like Rick's was.
Yeah. In our young arrogance, we thought we would fix that, and we thought, well, let's make the one movie that doesn't try to do that. As much as we ourselves are still filled with angst. But let's make this bright, colorful, silly, desperate to entertain musical, which we did. That was our senior project. And when we finished it, we had $300 left. And I was a month out of college. And so we rented out a movie theater and a screening.
Wow.
And it was the cast and crew, friends and family. It was basically everyone we knew. We filled this big theater, and we called everyone who we invited and said, if you know anyone in the movie business, connected remotely in any way, drag them to this screening.
Smart.
We don't know anybody. And so we had the screening, and it was the best screening the film ever had or will ever have, because it was filled with our, uncles and aunts and people who were in it, and some of our investors, and it was crazy. And so like people laughed at every joke, even the ones that weren't funny, and cheered at the end, and tapped their feet, and it was like great. So
That's awesome.
2 days later, I got a phone call, and this guy says, "Hi, Michael. I am the head of production for animation at Disney Studios, and I was at your screening the other night. My name is Donald Duckwall." And I said, well, "Who is this?"
Yeah.
No. It was Don
All
Duckwall.
right, joke's over.
Yeah, Don Duckwall. Look it up. It's like I actually am. And anyway, well, I really enjoyed your movie. Would you drop a print off at the studio? And so, basically before the phone hit the floor, the print was at the studio. I drove it out there, handed it to the guard at the gate, the one and only print that existed of this movie. And 2 weeks go by, and I get another phone call, and it's this guy who's the head of, he's the story editor for features at Disney. And so this is 1979, 78 or 79. And Disney was a failing studio at that point. Walt had died.
Wow.
No one could figure out what he would have done next. Their big movie that year was Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. And they were it was before Eisner came in and cleaned everything up. And the head of the studio was Ron Miller, who was a hero in my life, and Disney's son-in-law, and ran the studio. So Frank Paris, story editor at Disney, says, "Why don't you guys come in and have a meeting? We want to talk to you." So we go and have this meeting. We're led into the animation building. And we go up to the third floor. We led to Ron's office, Ron Miller's office, which was Walt's office. It's a big corner, wood paneled shrine. And they sit us down and they say, "Look, we think you guys might be able to do something that we have not been able to do, which is reach the teenage audience. So we'll give you offices, and you come up with ideas, and we'll give you a small salary. What do you say?"
That's incredible.
Well, are you freaking out at this moment?
That's insane that Disney brought you in to say, "We need you to do something we can't do."
Yeah. So like a month out of college, I had an office at Disney Studios. So
holy cow.
That's incredible.
The crazy thing is that we thought, "Oh, this is how it happens. This is why we went to film school."
Right.
Film school,
right.
You make a movie and people notice it and you get a job. And was like, we thought that happens to everybody. So
Wow.
it didn't seem like, we were very happy, but it didn't seem like quite the Cinderella story that it was.
Wow. Yeah. So then how do you go from that to directing? Because that seems like they wanted you guys to come up with ideas.
Well, then we made a movie for them. And so at age 20,
with their budget now you're in the big leagues.
Yeah, we made a feature called Midnight Madness, which is not a very good movie, but it was our first feature, and we learned a lot, and did some nice things, like got Michael J. Fox's green card so he could work in the U.S. And
oh wow!
Are you originally from Canada? I know you live there now, but
no. I grew up in Los Angeles.
Okay, you did. Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I live.
Okay.
I'm only a recent climate refugee.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about your student film, and then we can jump in. Did 8mm, 16mm? What
16.
were you? 16. And
it was the first time we ever shot 16 sync sound.
That was my next question. Of the
a ton of movies. We a ton of movies in Super 8 and some in Standard 8, and then we were shooting 16, and this was the first time we had sync sound, so we were just like figuring it all.
So why not do a 40-minute musical?
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
It's not that complicated, really.
No, but do you still have it?
Oh yeah. It's called Junior High School. One of the it's a musical. It takes place in one day in a junior high school, so all the characters are 13 years old, including Paula Abdul. who's in it.
Well, wow.
And,
This is unbelievable.
It's insane. Is there anything when you look back on that student film that you're like sparks something that you're proud of? Like, I mean, you could do it as a whole, but is there anything that was in there that you're like, you know what, that was actually good, or I'm proud that we did that thing or piece?
I haven't seen it in a few years, but in more recent times I've looked at it. It has this, it's very primitive, as you might imagine, but it has this very earnest desire to entertain.
Wow.
Even if it doesn't pull it off all the time,
yeah.
And there was so much we didn't know, but it's clearly a map of our other movies we loved, that we were imitating,
of course,
and but it has this, it's like, it says to the audience, we're here for you.
Wow.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome.
And that's the best thing I can say about it.
Very cool.
And it did exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah, clearly.
Entertain. Yeah. Michael, so we jump around a lot. So sorry if I want to get into, so you start back in the 70s, but then you do things like Defiance and even like Black Sails and stuff, which is really effects heavy. The Flash, they're really effects heavy. Can you kind of talk about the transition throughout the years of being, I guess you guys had to do practical effects back in the day, and then now it's a lot of digital effects. Can you talk about how the industry changed and then how you changed with it?
Well, I just, I like everybody, had to reinvent myself many, many times. Sometimes my career is like, I'm a serial has-been. And it's one of the most important skills, which is to be able to pick yourself up out of the gutter after the shit wagon has run you over, repeatedly.
Yeah.
And in my Midnight Madness started a feature career, which had its ups and downs, and led me to television somewhat reluctantly in the late 80s. And I never thought I would like television, but it turned out I loved it.
Wow.
And mostly because of the amount of work I was able to do. I mean, I've written 100 scripts and directed, over 100 hours of film, which that you can't do that in a feature career. There's so much downtime, and there's so much, trying to get a project off the ground. So I got to, my odometer started going really fast, and I found that thrilling.
Wow.
So in my TV career, I sort of I jumped from pigeonhole to pigeonhole. And what I mean by that is, my first television job was Life Goes On, and so I was like the family drama guy.
Mm-hmm.
And and I went from that to picket fences, and so I was like, if a story's about what makes families work, and heavy emotional stuff, and like I was the guy.
Yeah.
Until I did Battlestar, and then I was the science fiction.
Oh, that little tiny show called Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, never heard of it.
And then I was a science fiction guy. No one wanted me for family drama. I was the science fiction guy, and I'm not. There's zero complaint in any of this. It's all like delightful, because as a student filmmaker, I used to envy the contract directors of the 30s and 40s. Because they would get, you worked at Warner Brothers, you got a weekly salary for 7 years, and you'd go to work and they say, here's a script, here's a pirate picture, do that. And then you do your pirate picture and they go, okay, now you're doing a jazz picture. And I thought that's the life I want. And I kind of found it in episodic.
Wow.
Somehow my sci-fi pigeonhole kind of morphed into genre pigeonhole, and I did a lot of horror. And now I'm mostly doing Westerns. So I'm super happy. And so to go back to the other part of your question, which is visual effect and stuff, I kind of entered the future and went into very, very heavy effects laden stuff, and then came back to the most primitive form of filmmaking.
Wow.
Wow.
across the entire career.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But do you think that there's steps like I was a big fan of The Mentalist. Like, can you look back on like, is there a line between, let's say, Terminator or even Battlestar Galactica in terms of dealing with actors that something like The Mentalist or Lie to Me has?
No.
Really?
No. It's all the same. For me, aside from the fun of it and the costumes and the sets, genre makes no difference.
Okay.
Quality of writing.
Why?
Quality of writing makes a difference. Do the scenes work? Are they really about the human condition? A well-written scene transcends the genre. It's like two guys in a locker room and one's saying, my mother-in-law is staying with us. It's driving me crazy. Doesn't matter whether that's a cop show or a spaceship show. It's like, doesn't matter where it happens. Genre is kind of the window dressing. If I can do really well-written stories about people, that's all I care about.
So do you think that aspect, or the fact that you were good at that, is what allowed you to be able to traverse all the different, genres across the career, right? And I'm wondering too, if that was like relationships with people that got you, from one project to the next or something along those lines.
You stick around long enough, you learn a few things.
Yeah.
And, I found that, because I raised 3 kids in LA, and I had the whole, the house, the family, the dogs, the cars, the tutors, the whole thing. And so there were times where I went after shows that I really liked, and there were times where I needed a paycheck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
What's something you went after?
It's interesting. Well, Battlestar was a combination of the two. I had for a couple of years, I had an overall deal at Universal, which meant they paid me a weekly salary. And it was basically the same deal I had at Disney. Sit in your office and think of things. And so, I wrote pilots and scripts and directed stuff. And near the end of that, I had a sci-fi idea that was based on an old French movie that was not sci-fi. I was working with one of the executives there named David Icke, who left his job to co-produce Battlestar. So David Icke and I did, I don't know how many drafts of an outline of some miniseries for sci-fi, and they kept running us around in circles. And so for a year, wow, I was rethinking outlines. That was a miniseries, yeah. So, when you write an outline for a miniseries, it's a huge amount of structural work. You start tearing it apart and you have to rebuild it. There's the 3-act structure of the episode. There's the structure of the sweep of the series. It's like all that stuff. And so I had done a ton of work and for almost no money. And when they finally said, well, we're not going to make it, I had just started Battlestar. And I said, dude, I need a payday. You got to give me an episode.
Yeah.
And so I just needed, I needed to fill up the bank account. And, but also I was really ignorantly skeptical of a reboot of that old Battlestar show. I thought, really? The Lorne Greene thing? Really? And I had no idea what they had done. And after the first day on the set, I called Ike and said, I'm never leaving.
Can't get me off if you tried.
I hope you're okay with this.
Wow. And so how long did you end up working on it?
I did 8 or 10 episodes over 3 seasons. It's hard to remember, the seasons are all fragmented. They had, season 4.5 and, because sci-fi, the original broadcast of Battlestar underperformed. So it was always on the cusp of being canceled. So they wouldn't give Ron Moore a season. They only give him half a season at a time.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So can you talk about the process from when you first come on as a director to when your last day of a director is?
On an episode?
Let's actually we can go even further. Let's say like Black Sails.
Yeah.
So you get hired to do that. Like what's the process there? Do you then read the script, or do you read the script beforehand? Like how does all that work?
I usually don't have the script that I'm going to direct. I usually have access to the scripts that come before.
Mm.
You know, if a show's in its second season, then I watch everything.
Yeah.
You know, in preparation for, you know, whatever the initial interview is. So Black Sails, I think, was something my agents found for me. I didn't have any connection with those guys, but it was a period of time where I was kind of hot, you know, as a director, and so I had the luxury of picking and choosing.
Nice.
And my little proto Michael Curtiz working for Warner Brothers inside me said, "Pirate picture." Get to do a pirate picture. And you know, I read some of the scripts, and you know, it was really good. And I can't remember, you know, you kind of like land into every show slightly differently. So through whatever mechanisms, they either just hired me or they interviewed and hired me, and I passed the interview. And so I get the job. The show shot in Cape Town. So before, you know, roughly, I think did I do one episode or two? I can't remember. I think I just did one. So that show was like a 9-day shoot with a 9-day prep.
Mm.
So I get my script before prep, dig into it, send notes, got on a plane. 24 hours later, I was in Cape Town. 12 hours after that, I was walking around the sets trying to like stay upright. And so, you know, the first, you know, the week and a half or 2 weeks of prep are, costume design, extra casting, me walking the sets, figuring out how I'm going to shoot this, taking the cast out to dinner, getting to know them, building a trust with them, spending time with the DP, watching the director who's ahead of me, you know, how things go on the set. That show had a directing producer, which not all shows have, which is a job that I've had several times. Who's there? He's kind of is a creative executive producer, but his job is to, you know, sort of like shepherd and help the visiting directors.
That's cool.
So I spent a lot of time with him, and you know, basically just got myself ready for the first day and jumped in, and you know, you blink and it's over.
Yeah.
And then do you go into the post? Are you part of the post team overseeing anything?
In episodic, guest directors' involvement in post is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, because the way it's structured is the showrunners, executive producers, network, like the top tier, their concern is the series.
Right.
Their concern is the sweep of the season. And, you know, you hire a director because you need to hire someone who only gives a shit about his own episode, right? Who's going to go into granular detail and pay attention to every little thing. Mm-hmm. So while it belongs to, you know, while I'm prepping and shooting, it belongs to me. Mm-hmm. And then I get the editor is assembling footage as I shoot. Editor presents me with a cut. I have, you know, several days to do my cut, and then I hand it off and I walk away.
Do you think that guest directors are overall a good thing, a necessary thing for a production?
I think it's, yeah, you know, yes. As someone who's made his living doing it, I think it's fantastic. Yeah. There are some shows, you know, like The Bear, I think is directed by the showrunner. They're all directed by the showrunner. And there are shows like that. But you need someone who's a glutton for punishment. It's really hard to direct every episode. I go on shows where I leapfrog with another director, so there's only 2 directors per season. And after like 4 go-arounds, you just like you're wiped out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and what you just said made a lot of sense to me. That is what kind of clicked for me about when you have a guest director and they come in, then they're paying attention to every little piece and detail of their, of that piece. And that makes a lot of sense as far as lifting the production value, of everything that's happening and going on.
Also, you want new ideas,
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
To come in and not be loyal to old ideas, and to be inventive and have fresh eyes and bring something new. And in the sweep of a series, if you really look for it in most shows which have guest directors, there's a different feeling to each episode. But I think that's like super healthy.
Do you find, let's take like a show like Heroes, when you go on that set, when they've been doing it for so long, is your job easier because they've been doing it, or is it harder because they've kind of been doing it for so long and they don't want to come out of that mold?
I don't know. I've been super lucky. There are shows in television where you come in and they say, this is how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've almost never been on a show like that. Actually, the only
Mm.
show I've been on that was Battlestar. But I loved how they did it. Their conceit was that, this is all shot by a documentary crew, who got stuck on the ship. That's why we shoot it this way, because there's two guys with video cameras. And so the conceit was all these little nervous zooms, and, we didn't pay any attention to screen direction. And, the camera was always slightly late to the action because it's a documentary and the operators don't know what's going to happen. And so I loved that idea. But within that, I could do whatever I wanted.
Let me ask you about that, because that's a very strategic thing. Do you tell your DP or your cameraman or woman that we want you to be late, or you just not tell them what the action is? Do they come in and kind of have to figure it out and follow it?
Everyone knows, like secrets don't help you.
Okay.
But talking to the operators and say, let's just like, catch it, but catch it a little bit late. It's like, that's totally legit. But anyway, most shows I've been on, like if you come on a show in its first season, nobody knows what it is. They're finding it.
Yeah.
They're all finding it. And so they're open to ideas. And then I've gone on shows where they're in their fourth season and they're like, we're so bored with ourselves. Like, bring us something new.
Yeah. That's interesting. And God, there's so many questions. I'm sorry to just rapid fire these at you, please. But if you have a script on set for you, can you rewrite? Because you're a writer as well. Do they let you rewrite?
By the time I come on as a director, the script has been, broken by the writing staff. It's been through the hands of their writers in this, it's been through the hands of the showrunner. It's been altered with network and studio notes.
Got it. Okay.
Streamer notes. And so they're all kind of hoping that I will just take it and shoot it.
Got it.
But having fresh eyes, I often have ideas. But and I learned this the hard way. I'll tell you the anecdote behind it. But, I have to very gently sort of put my foot in the door that they really want to slam and say, I've been thinking about this script, and might it be better if this happens? Mm-hmm. For me to take it and rewrite it, no.
Okay, got it.
But that actually goes back to the idea, one of my cardinal rules is, no secrets in a movie. The more everyone knows, if you're going to have conflict on something, have it up front.
Got it.
Don't like, oh, I'm going to tell them this, but I'm actually going to do this. It's like, this doesn't work. Everyone should know everything. And then you have an opportunity, even if there's a disagreement, you have an opportunity to hash it out so that by the time you get to the set, you've reached an agreement with everyone. And, or usually what happens is if there's a difference of opinion, some new third thing is born out of the discussion, which is usually better than either position at the beginning.
Interesting.
Beauty of collaboration.
Yeah.
And when, like a show like Life Goes On, was that shot on film?
Yeah, 35 film and finished on film.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, it was the last show at Warner Brothers that delivered a 35 millimeter print to the network.
Wow.
And we were begging them to adopt this new thing called Avid.
Right.
In demos of them, like, nah, it's, we're not ready for that.
Wow.
So we were there till 2 a.m, 35 millimeter film on a flatbed,
Wow.
physically cutting and taping it together.
Wow.
How long were your edit weeks?
They just went on forever.
Endless. You're still cutting one.
There's still a shot we're looking for that fell behind the machine.
So when you're doing stuff now, does that, because shooting on film, I mean, like checking the gate was a thing, that's not a thing anymore. So did it change your directing style? Did you could have more takes and speed things up once it went digital?
Yes.
How so?
Well, the two main differences about digital, which I like. The first is that you don't need as much light, which is great. So you walk into a location, you walk into a bar, and it's lit. They accept a little bit of like a little soft light that's the size of a paperback book that you use to fill in a face. And otherwise, it's like it doesn't matter what's in there. You can shoot anywhere, which is lovely. You save time. The other advantage is I can keep the camera running. It doesn't cost anything,
right?
And there's you can't abuse this privilege, but to get an actor into a special place, you don't want to yet say cut and have the makeup people come in and break the mood.
Yeah.
So you just you do a take and you just keep rolling and just roll right into another take. The downside of that is that in the film days, dailies were less than an hour, always. And so we would have lunch in a screening room, and watch dailies on a screen, which was great. But now there can be, because a lot of people keep the camera running, an editor can come to work in the morning and have 6 or 8 hours of dailies. So the first 6 or 8 hours of their day is watching.
It's a long lunch.
Trying to learn the material. Then they start editing. And that's just, that's horrible. And also, like, rare are the editors who can remember everything they saw.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So I'm a lot of my time with the editors spent saying there was a take, that this happened, and can we find it?
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh. That's brutal.
Luckily, I have one of my, I'm a bit of a savant about footage I've shot.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I can remember. It's all stuck in my head.
Wow.
It makes me a dull dinner guest, but.
But that is the advantage of going into an edit as a director, is you intended it one way, and that's why I think there's value of you sitting in the edit. But you're saying you only get 1 or 2 cuts, or one cut?
I get one cut, the director's cut.
Got it.
In which I can do whatever I want. And so I'm always using my director's cut to insert new ideas, different ways of storytelling. And actually, to answer an earlier question, that's when I do my rewrite.
Got it. Yeah.
We don't need these 4 lines,
Right. Right. What do you have a favorite project you've ever worked on?
There's 2. Battlestar, because as dark and dismal as the story was, the set was teddy bears and lollipops. We all couldn't wait to go to work. We adored each other. We were all fans of the show. I made lifelong friends. And it was this happy experience.
Wow.
I've never quite had that, experience where all the atoms combined in the right way.
Right.
And the material was fantastic, and I had enormous leeway in how I wanted to do it.
Wait, what's the second one though?
Life Goes On.
Oh, got it. Oh, okay.
They may be one and the same, but is there a project you're the most proud of? If that makes sense, like that could be two different things in my head.
I'm the last person to be able to judge.
Okay, can I judge for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Here's the thing, because your career is so massive and there's so many things. So, you could lead out and say CSI because of how popular it is, or Heroes how popular it is, but Defiance is unreal, the directing of it, because of how much motion there is. And the thing that really resonates more than anything is the characters in there are unbelievable, like so emotional, and yeah. So that's your answer, Michael.
Well, thank you, because no one has ever heard of that show.
Really?
It's
No.
like the show that never existed. Like people don't know it at all. And it was really fun to make. It was great to make, and we have this. I was the directing producer in that show, and directed a ton of them. But I was there for every shot of all the seasons. And the DP, Tom Burston, who you should have on the show because he's top in his field, I think. He and I had this way of shooting it, and we couldn't describe it. But there was a way of framing and moving that was off in a certain way, and we were always searching for it. And every once in a while we go, that's Defiance. We'd hit, and the operators were hip to it, and they'd always offer up weird stuff and things that were just kind of not quite right. And we didn't always hit it. And then the clock said shoot it anyway. But every once in a while, we go, that we did it. That's Defiance. But we couldn't explain it to anybody.
How was it? I mean, because that is such an effects heavy show, and it was one of the earlier shows where the effects didn't look fake. Like that's what always kind of annoyed me about some of early 2000s to probably late 2010, like somewhere in there. It just looked fake. It didn't look like part of action, and you could buy because it's television, or whatever. But that was one of those ones where the effects were so incredible. Can you kind of explain? I mean, were you there before the show started? I mean, if you were producing it, and you had to have been, yeah.
I came on. I was hired during the filming of the pilot.
Got it. So working with an effects team like that, how much of a role is that as a director, and how much do they kind of influence your directing?
Huge. Two things. The gestalt, the marching orders behind the effects on Defiance were somewhat budget driven. We had this we built this big backlot, which were all the streets of the town, and we had sets built, and so we didn't use visual effects for any of the characters,
right?
And we weren't building monsters, but most of our visual effects were set extensions. So we would build these gigantic environments that we couldn't afford to build in reality, but we could, they go down into the New York subway, and so we would have these cavernous, we'd build the floor and some foreground pieces. The rest was green screen. We had a gigantic green screen stage. And Gary Hutzel, who was in charge of our visual effects, would build environments that were gigantic and gave enormous production value.
In terms of the look, like if you look at something like Van Helsing versus like Eureka, which I was a huge fan of Eureka. If you look at the differences, how much do you have to learn going into that as a director? Because I mean, Van Helsing, especially since there was movies and the TV series is very cinematic, but Eureka was kind of more, that felt more like a TV show, where Van Helsing feels more like a movie. Is there a learning curve for you to get to there?
No, part of the difference is I built the look of Van Helsing, because I did the pilot. I did the first 3 episodes in a big block. And so I had, 3 hours of film to work out the world and the look and the color scheme and the everything, camera style. And, and my taste is much more indie than network. And Eureka was just a gun for hire, and they are already like way down the line on the show. And so it had already pretty much been designed.
Got it.
But Van Helsing, that was a great experience too. I've been, I've had some, I've had some good.
I got a quick question about you. You referenced that you've done the producing director on multiple shows or occasions. Did you run into a scenario where you felt
wanted
like
to fire yourself?
No, but I'm going down something similar. That a guest director that came in, you felt wasn't like hitting the mark the way that you felt was necessary, and if so, how did you deal with that?
Rarely.
Yeah,
Because I was part of the hiring phase, so
got it.
we all did a lot of due diligence before someone came in. But yeah, every once in a while, a director was either their first one, or they just weren't quite nailing it, or they were sometimes they were afraid to push the boundaries.
That's interesting.
Needed or being safe and needed permission to because I would like on Defiance, I would just the directors would come in and I would say, that art film you've always wanted to make it here.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Well, that's a huge mentor role then for the guest directors that are coming in. That's an incredible opportunity for those guest directors.
And most people I know who have this job, the directing producer job is best when it's selfless.
Mm.
When my job is, how do I help this director be the best he or she can be? How do I elevate them? How do I give them inspiration and get them excited and point out any landmines? A lot of that job is saying like, giving them the political field that they're playing in, and where the power is, and how to work the system.
Wow,
got it.
To get what they want. I'm there to help them, but it's basically it's like I'm here to help you succeed, and if you succeed, then I succeed. So,
wow.
Do your kids love this, that you do this?
Yeah, they do. My son's a director.
Oh, okay.
My middle daughter's a sculptor, and my youngest is a choreographer.
Oh, wow.
So
they're all in the arts.
All in the arts.
Wow.
Which means I can retire never.
Yeah, exactly. You better keep working. Better start writing. This is going to sound weird, and I don't mean it to be a weird question, but like, why do you not have an ego? In this business, a lot of people have an ego, but it seems like you don't have one.
I have one. And it's, it's tied up like Hannibal Lecter. Because it doesn't serve me.
Wow.
It's the worst thing to have in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always leads to bad decisions.
So what's next for you?
I'm happy to say I don't know.
Yeah.
Which has been my answer at the end of every job I've ever had.
Yeah.
I rarely have things booked out into the future. And I'm usually convinced that every job's my last one.
Do you have an itch to scratch? Like, is there a movie that you've always wanted to make, or a TV show that it's kind of just back there that you keep putting off because work's getting in the way?
Yes.
All right, let's break news here. What is it? When's it coming out?
Not on a podcast. I'm not going to.
Not on this one, at least.
Yeah. Wow.
So all right. So we spanned your career. Now, when we spoke on the phone quickly, the whole idea behind this podcast is that defining moment. And you may have already said it, but do you have a defining moment?
Yeah. It was on Life Goes On.
Wow.
And I mean, all those like major moments are early on, right? So as Life Goes On, I was a staff writer. Now I have to understand the world in which Life Goes On existed. It was 1989 or 1989. There was no streaming. There was only broadcast, which meant that a show went on at a certain time on a certain day, and if you missed it, you missed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there were many fewer choices for viewers, and which meant the audience wasn't as fragmented. So Life Goes On, which was considered kind of a ratings failure, had 12 million viewers.
Wow.
Wow.
You have two of them right here.
Yeah. So 12, because we were opposite 60 Minutes, which is a powerhouse.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
12
and so
million
we
viewers.
stayed on the air because there were very low expectations for us. But, if you have 1 million viewers today, you're a major hit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we had 12 million people tuning in every week. And, the network was saying, can you do a little better? So early on in my stint in my first season as a staff writer, the showrunner, Michael Braverman, came into my office and a script that I'd written was being shot. And he came in and he said, we're short. He goes, can you write another scene to shoot tomorrow? I said, yeah, I can do that. And so the theme of the episode was homelessness. Drew, the dad, Bill Smitrovich, owns a restaurant. He's coming out of work one day in the alley behind the restaurant, and there's this homeless guy, and he, goes and gives him $1 and he goes, Steve? And it's like some guy he went to high school with.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of like tries to save him and can't. And so it just, is a platform in which, there was a lot of discussion about what it means to be homeless and issues around it and what is our responsibility. And so I needed a new scene. And so I wrote a scene, and I'd done a ton of research at that point. I wrote a scene where the chef of the restaurant tells a story, a backstory, and it was when he was homeless in Germany decades early. And it was, it was filled with details about like, okay, the first day, you think it's just going to be a day. And the second day, you can't walk into a restaurant because they'll kick you out. And the third day, you start to give up. And the fourth, it was like, it was that speech. Wow. And it's shocking because it's a character who you never would have thought, ever experienced that. And so I stayed up really late and I wrote the scene. I went to the set in the morning. This was a Thursday, I think a Wednesday or Thursday. They shot the scene. It was cut into the show. And that Sunday, or 2 Sundays later, 12 million people saw it.
Wow.
And the enormity of what I was doing by working in television, hit me. Like, I just had this like crazy idea. I wrote down my feelings about this issue, and then it went out to 12 million people, and which is more people than have ever seen Shakespeare.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it just turned me around about, the reality of TV and movies. And, I quickly developed a sense of responsibility about what I put out.
Wow. Did it change your writing then?
It changed what I wanted to write and what I wanted.
Wow.
To write.
Wow. You start with junior high school, right? As you're short and it's just to entertain and it's like, you're not trying to make a statement or anything. Then you go on to like Life Goes On. There's this incredibly powerful scene. Don't you kind of gravitate to writing more towards that then because you had that experience?
No, it didn't. I mean, well, you know what? As I'm saying this, yeah, it did. Mm-hmm. It did. And you have to be cagey about, writing with an agenda because it can undercut the drama. But it made me want to tell stories responsibly, or at the very least benignly, but not destructively. Like one of my own rules for me, and I've pretty much stuck to it, is that I'll never write or direct a scene in which someone is shot with a gun to death and the audience is manipulated to cheer about it.
That's interesting.
And why do you have that rule?
Because, I look at, we're like, 150 years into this social experiment of moving pictures, and from the first movie, the Edison's train robbery, movies have been fascinated with guns. And I invite you to look at the state of America in the last 150 years.
I missed it. What's going on?
I said I invite you to look at the state of America in the last 150 years.
Yeah, it's
I think that there's a certain culpability in filmed entertainment.
Wow.
And I think that I'm not going to say, I've had plenty of people shot to death in my work, but I try to make it as horrifying as possible.
Yeah.
And not celebrate it or make it into like violence porn or associate positive feelings with gun play.
Do you know
say that's a pretty noble thing?
I agree.
Especially at your position and your level of what you're doing. That's actually really noble.
Do you know when you formed that rule? Like in the journey?
It was soon after the homeless episode of Life Goes On. I started thinking,
wow.
Like what am I saying? I have this, I've been given this like incredibly loud voice. What do I do with it?
Oh, that's great.
Wow. That's incredible.
So good.
It just pushed me into being critical in that way of any script I'm handed.
It's a huge testament to character, obviously.
Yeah, it really is. And the fact that you haven't wavered from it, that's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Some lighter questions now. What are you watching these days?
What do you love? How about what do you love that you've watched these days?
Well, when it comes to episodic television, I'm a pusher, not a user.
That's incredible.
Smart.
Yeah. Fair. So you're pushing your own product is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
No, and I find it's less noble than it sounds. It's work. To watch episodic TV, I go into work mode.
Yeah.
So to watch something for entertainment or educational value is like I'm just going like, oh, it was late in the day when they shot that. Oh, I would have put that in Act 2, and it's like I need to get away from that.
Yeah. No, it's why it's difficult for me to go to concerts. I'm the same way. The LED tile's out over there, and the audio sounds terrible over here, and that speaker's blown over here, and
that's okay too. But it's like it's work.
Yeah.
And also, I remember hearing this wonderful interview with a guitar player, the guy who created the twangy like steel guitar sound in country music, and I can't remember his name, but he had died, and then they archived it. They played an archive interview on NPR with him, and the interviewer said, so what kind of country music do you listen to? And he said, oh, I don't listen to country music. I can't learn anything. I listen to classical, I listen to jazz, and then I can bring things to country music. And that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my answer to you in the world of episodic, almost nothing.
Sorry, unrelated. No, I just had this flash of you in that whole like work scenario, and in my brain I went, I wonder if his family hates when he wants to catch a video just on his cell phone of the family because it turns into a whole production, or if that's something super easy to do and you don't even care, you don't think about it in that regard.
I recently digitized the 13 hours of 16 millimeter film I shot of my kids growing up.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Where you like, stand here, the lighting's better here, move over, do this.
You bet.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
Michael, do you listen to music? Like, is that something that gets you in the mood or
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
A lot.
What are you listening to?
I've really eclectic everything.
You're not getting off that easy.
I'm kind of like 2 years into a Western swing jag.
Wow.
Like
country music.
Django?
Yes, Django. But, country music was on the way in the 30s and 40s. And so they adapted the vernacular of swing.
Huh.
And it's great.
Wow.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for doing this and taking so much time out of your Saturday. You are unbelievable in your work. Like I said, I've been a fan without even knowing it for so long.
Yeah,
so
same.
Thank you for coming on.
And incredibly eloquent going through like your past history and some of those pieces. I was enthralled this entire time. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure.
big time director right there.
Dang. Whew. We had talked about this. I didn't get to do any sort of research on it. You gave me his name like a while ago, and you mentioned Battlestar and other things too. I was like, oh, that's cool. Then he started going. I had no idea Life Goes On, right? Like, which was one of it's so interesting. I wasn't going to get into that, but there was a level of that show that was formative. Like he said, you were like too young, right? They're too young. The whole thing. But it was like it was like,
right at that age.
Yeah,
it was the age of being informative. And the thing is even if we didn't catch it every week, it was on every week. Like we had it on, or it was like you'd pass it and stuff. Yeah, it's amazing. But then you go and look, he's doing like Van Helsing, Terminator, Sarah Connor Chronicles, like two completely different shows.
Sure.
And like Terminator, like it's one of my brother's favorite shows. I mean, so amazing, like so amazing.
Yeah.
And like. It was sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say Sarah. Who plays Sarah Connor in that?
Isn't it Khaleesi? Is that the Khaleesi girl?
Yeah.
Amelia Clark. Is that her name?
No. Yeah. Lena Headley.
Oh no, so that's not Khaleesi then.
No, it's the queen. What's her name? Cersei.
Oh, Cersei. Oh yeah.
I
thought there was a connection there.
Yeah, like he got to direct some unbelievable people. God, this guy is
sure.
so cool. So cool.
Agreed. I was very earnest as I was sitting here listening to him talk. I was like, this is incredible. And he's incredibly, just, I don't know, like his energy that he's just, like just kind of talking very mellow, very calm, very knowledgeable and well-spoken. I appreciated it.
So,
well, it was fun. It's a good episode.
It was a good one. Yeah, it was good. And I didn't talk over you all the time. You got a lot of questions.
No, you did not.
I know. Season 2.
Look at him, just rocking it. I do feel like you need to stop scheduling episodes, though. Scheduling guests before we figured any of our crap out. Just keep rolling with it, even though we haven't done a single thing in between.
Well, it's on you. You're all like, hey, we need to talk. And I'm like, hey, I'm free anytime you want to talk.
First of all, it's horse shit. Second of all,
it's not horse shit.
I'm waiting on you to determine which platform we're going with.
Avid. Or well, let me think about that. Goodbye, everyone.